Global warming. Welcome to this monologue on global warming, where we will be discussing the science, history, consequences, and mitigation strategies of this pressing environmental issue. Global warming refers to the long-term increase in Earth's average surface temperature caused by human activities, primarily the emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. The impact of global warming on the planet is far-reaching and threatens to disrupt ecosystems, weather patterns, and natural resources. In this monologue, we will explore the science behind global warming, its historical context, and the potential consequences of inaction. We will also discuss various strategies to mitigate the effects of global warming and the responses of governments and industries to this issue. Finally, we will encourage listeners to take individual actions to reduce their carbon footprint and discuss the future outlook for global warming if we do not take action now. Global warming refers to the long-term increase in the Earth's average surface temperature, primarily caused by the buildup of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, in the atmosphere. These gases trap heat from the sun and prevent it from escaping into space, leading to a gradual warming of the planet. The impact of global warming on the planet is significant and far-reaching. It has led to rising sea levels, more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, wildfires, and other extreme weather events. The warming of the oceans has also caused ocean acidification, which threatens marine ecosystems and the fish populations that rely on them. Furthermore, global warming has also caused the melting of ice caps and glaciers, leading to rising sea levels that could displace millions of people in low-lying areas. The loss of Arctic sea ice has also disrupted weather patterns and led to more extreme winter weather in some areas. Additionally, global warming is exacerbating the extinction of many plant and animal species as they struggle to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. We'll talk about that now. Historical context. Discuss the history of global warming and how human activities have contributed to it. The concept of global warming is not new, as scientists have been studying it for over a century. The idea that the Earth's climate could be affected by human activities was first proposed in the early 19th century. However, it wasn't until the mid-20th century that the issue gained widespread attention. The modern history of global warming began in the 1970s when scientists first started to express concern about rising global temperatures. This was followed by the establishment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, in 1988 by the United Nations. The IPCC is a group of scientists from around the world who evaluate the state of knowledge on climate change. The scientific consensus on global warming is that the Earth's average temperature has increased by about 1 degree Celsius, 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, since the beginning of the 20th century. This may seem like a small increase, but it has significant impacts on the Earth's climate system, such as melting glaciers and ice caps, rising sea levels, and more frequent and intense weather events like heat waves, droughts, and hurricanes. Human activities have contributed to global warming by releasing large amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, which causes the planet to warm. The burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas is the primary source of human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. Other activities like deforestation, agriculture, and industrial processes also contribute to global warming. The impacts of global warming are widespread and can be seen in every corner of the planet. Rising sea levels threaten coastal communities and small island nations. Changes in rainfall patterns and temperatures are affecting agriculture and food security. Extreme weather events like heat waves and hurricanes are becoming more frequent and severe. In conclusion, the history of global warming has been a gradual recognition of the impacts of human activities on the Earth's climate system. The scientific consensus is that the Earth is warming, and human activities are the primary cause of this warming. The challenge now is to take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and limit the impacts of global warming on our planet. Let's now discuss the science behind global warming and how it affects the planet's ecosystems, weather patterns, and natural resources. Global warming refers to the long-term increase in the Earth's average surface temperature, primarily caused by human activities, such as burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and agriculture. The science behind global warming is rooted in the greenhouse effect, which is the natural process that occurs when certain gases in the atmosphere trap heat from the sun and keep the planet warm enough to sustain life. The main greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, and nitrous oxide, N2O. Human activities have greatly increased the concentrations of these gases in the atmosphere, primarily through the burning of fossil fuels, which releases carbon dioxide, and agricultural practices, which release methane and nitrous oxide. As these greenhouse gases accumulate in the atmosphere, they trap more heat from the sun, causing the Earth's average surface temperature to rise. This leads to a range of impacts on the planet's ecosystems, weather patterns, and natural resources. One of the most significant impacts of global warming is the melting of glaciers and ice sheets, which contributes to sea level rise. This can lead to flooding in coastal areas and the loss of coastal ecosystems, such as wetlands and mangroves. Global warming also affects weather patterns, leading to more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, wildfires, and extreme precipitation events. These changes can have significant impacts on agriculture, water resources, and human health. In addition, global warming can disrupt ecosystems and lead to the loss of biodiversity. As temperatures rise, some species may be unable to adapt and could face extinction. This can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem, impacting the food chain and other important ecological processes. Finally, global warming can have significant impacts on natural resources, such as water and food. As temperatures rise and weather patterns shift, the availability and quality of these resources may be affected, leading to food and water scarcity in some areas. Overall, the science behind global warming suggests that urgent action is needed to mitigate its impacts and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This requires a concerted effort by governments, businesses, and individuals to transition to cleaner and more sustainable energy sources and reduce their carbon footprint. Now explore the potential consequences of global warming, such as rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and food shortages. Global warming, caused by the buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, has already had far-reaching consequences, including rising temperatures, melting glaciers, and more frequent and intense weather events. Here are some of the potential consequences of global warming. 1. Rising sea levels. As temperatures rise, glaciers and ice caps melt, causing sea levels to rise. This can lead to flooding of coastal areas, loss of habitat for marine life, and increased storm surges. 2. Extreme weather events. As the climate becomes more unstable, extreme weather events such as hurricanes, droughts, and heat waves are expected to become more frequent and severe. 3. Food shortages. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can impact agricultural production, leading to food shortages and rising prices. This can be particularly devastating for developing countries that rely on agriculture for their livelihoods. 4. Increased disease. Rising temperatures and changing weather patterns can impact the distribution of disease-carrying insects and animals, increasing the risk of infectious diseases such as malaria and dengue fever. 5. Loss of biodiversity. As temperatures rise, many plant and animal species may be unable to adapt to the changing climate, leading to widespread extinction and loss of biodiversity. 6. Economic impact. Global warming can have significant economic impacts, including damage to infrastructure, lost productivity due to extreme weather events, and increased costs associated with adaptation and mitigation efforts. Overall, the consequences of global warming are far-reaching and potentially catastrophic, highlighting the urgent need for action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and limit the impact of climate change. Next up, let's talk about mitigation strategies. Discuss various strategies to mitigate the effects of global warming, such as reducing carbon emissions, transitioning to renewable energy sources, and carbon capture technologies. Global warming is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted approach to address its harmful effects. Here are some strategies to mitigate the effects of global warming. 1. Reducing carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are one of the primary contributors to global warming. Therefore, reducing carbon emissions is a crucial strategy for mitigating its effects. Governments, businesses, and individuals can all contribute to reducing carbon emissions by using energy-efficient appliances, reducing energy consumption, switching to low-carbon transportation, and adopting sustainable agricultural practices. 2. Transitioning to renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources, such as solar, wind, and hydropower, produce far fewer greenhouse gas emissions than fossil fuels. Therefore, transitioning to renewable energy sources is a critical strategy for mitigating the effects of global warming. Governments can incentivize the development and adoption of renewable energy sources by offering subsidies or tax breaks. 3. Carbon capture technologies. Carbon capture technologies can capture carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and other industrial sources, preventing them from entering the atmosphere. This strategy can help mitigate the effects of global warming by reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. 4. Afforestation and reforestation. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis, making afforestation and reforestation effective strategies for mitigating the effects of global warming. Governments and private entities can support afforestation and reforestation efforts by investing in forest restoration projects. 5. Improving energy efficiency. Energy-efficient buildings, appliances, and transportation can help reduce energy consumption and, in turn, carbon emissions. Governments can incentivize the adoption of energy-efficient technologies by offering tax breaks or other financial incentives. 7. Sustainable agriculture. Agricultural practices that prioritize soil health, crop rotation, and minimal pesticide use can help reduce carbon emissions and mitigate the effects of global warming. Governments can incentivize sustainable agricultural practices through subsidies and other financial incentives. In conclusion, mitigating the effects of global warming will require a combination of strategies that reduce carbon emissions, transition to renewable energy sources, promote carbon capture technologies, increase energy efficiency, and adopt sustainable agricultural practices. Governments, businesses, and individuals all have a role to play in implementing these strategies and mitigating the effects of global warming. I'll talk about government and industry responses, analyze the responses of governments and industries to global warming, and discuss policies and practices that are being implemented to address the issue. Governments and industries around the world have taken different approaches to addressing global warming. Some have taken proactive measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, while others have been slow to respond or have denied the existence of global warming altogether. In general, policies and practices being implemented to address global warming can be divided into mitigation and adaptation measures. Mitigation measures are those that aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and limit the extent of global warming. One of the most common ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is through the use of renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydropower. Many countries have set targets for increasing their share of renewable energy in their energy mix, and some have implemented policies like feed-in tariffs and tax incentives to encourage the development of renewable energy. In addition to promoting renewable energy, governments and industries are also taking steps to improve energy efficiency in buildings, transportation, and industry. This includes things like improving insulation in buildings, using more efficient lighting and appliances, and promoting public transportation and electric vehicles. Another important mitigation measure is carbon pricing. Carbon pricing refers to policies that put a price on greenhouse gas emissions, either through a tax or through a cap-and-trade system. By putting a price on carbon emissions, these policies create an economic incentive for individuals and businesses to reduce their emissions. Adaptation measures, on the other hand, aim to help communities and ecosystems adapt to the impacts of global warming that are already happening or are likely to occur in the future. This includes things like building seawalls to protect against sea level rise, developing drought-resistant crops, and improving water management practices. Some examples of policies and practices being implemented around the world include 2. Renewable energy targets. Many countries have set targets for increasing their share of renewable energy in their energy mix. For example, the European Union has set a target of 32% renewable energy by 2030. 3. Carbon pricing. A number of countries, including Sweden, Switzerland, and British Columbia, have implemented carbon pricing policies. 4. Energy efficiency standards. Many countries have implemented energy efficiency standards for buildings, appliances, and vehicles. For example, the U.S. has implemented energy efficiency standards for light bulbs, refrigerators, and air conditioners. 5. Reforestation. Planting trees and preserving forests can help absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Some countries, like Brazil, have implemented policies to reduce deforestation and promote reforestation. 5. Green infrastructure. Building green infrastructure, such as green roofs and permeable pavement, can help absorb rainwater and reduce the urban heat island effect. Cities like Chicago and Philadelphia have implemented green infrastructure programs. Overall, there is still much work to be done to address global warming. Governments and industries must continue to work together to implement policies and practices that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help communities and ecosystems adapt to the impacts of global warming. Next up, let's talk about individual actions. Encourage listeners to take individual actions to reduce their carbon footprint, such as reducing meat consumption, using public transportation, and conserving energy at home. Reducing your carbon footprint is an important step toward mitigating climate change. Here are some individual actions you can take. 1. Reduce meat consumption. Meat production is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. You can reduce your carbon footprint by eating less meat and more plant-based foods. Consider incorporating vegetarian meals into your diet and choosing meat alternatives. 2. Use public transportation. Taking public transportation, biking, or walking instead of driving alone can significantly reduce your carbon emissions. If possible, consider using public transportation or carpooling to get to work or other destinations. 3. Conserve energy at home. You can conserve energy at home by turning off lights and electronics when not in use, using energy-efficient appliances and light bulbs, and setting your thermostat to save energy. 4. Reduce water consumption. Conserving water can also help reduce your carbon footprint. You can do this by fixing leaks, taking shorter showers, and installing water-efficient fixtures. 5. Choose sustainable products. Look for products that are made from sustainable materials and have minimal packaging. This can help reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills. Remember, every action counts, no matter how small. By making conscious choices in your daily life, you can help reduce your carbon footprint and make a positive impact on the environment. Let's move on to the next topic. Future outlook. Discuss the future outlook for global warming and the potential impact it could have on the planet if action is not taken. The future outlook for global warming is concerning, as the Earth's temperature continues to rise due to the release of greenhouse gases from human activities such as burning fossil fuels and deforestation. If significant action is not taken to reduce these emissions, the impact on the planet could be severe and long-lasting. Some potential impacts of global warming include rising sea levels. As temperatures increase, ice caps and glaciers melt, causing sea levels to rise. This can lead to increased flooding, erosion of coastlines, and the displacement of coastal communities. More frequent and severe weather events. Global warming can lead to more frequent and severe weather events, such as hurricanes, droughts, and heatwaves, which can cause widespread damage to infrastructure, agriculture, and human health. Ecosystem disruption. Rising temperatures and changes in weather patterns can disrupt ecosystems and cause a loss of biodiversity. This can have cascading effects on food webs and the services that ecosystems provide to humans, such as pollination and water purification. Public health impacts. Climate change can lead to an increase in diseases transmitted by insects, such as malaria and dengue fever, as well as heat-related illnesses and respiratory problems caused by air pollution. To mitigate these potential impacts, governments and individuals must take immediate action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This could include transitioning to renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and implementing policies to promote sustainable land use and transportation. If action is not taken, the consequences of global warming could be catastrophic for the planet and future generations. I hope this monologue has provided you with valuable insights into the complex issue of global warming. It is clear that this is a pressing environmental issue that requires collective action and individual responsibility. By reducing our carbon footprint, supporting sustainable practices, and advocating for change, we can help mitigate the impact of global warming on our planet. Remember, the choices we make today will determine the world we leave for future generations. Thank you for listening, and please join us for our next episode.